We're live.
We're live.
Okay. Today we talk about strategy number 3 from the 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene. So we have 3 strategies down, 30 to go.
Well,
Today's strategy is amidst the heat of events, do not lose your presence of mind, the counterbalance strategy. Amidst the heat of events, do not lose your presence of mind. If you could sum that up, what do you think? What does he mean by that to you?
I think he means if you're in the present, if you live in the present, okay, you're going to be able to absorb all the little details that you need, okay, to be extremely effective in the moment. And I think it's crucial. I think it's crucial. You know, the chapter is absolutely fantastic.
So you have to be in the presence. I'm sorry, in the present.
In the present moment.
But one thing he talks a lot about is people are calm and collected when things are going well.
Correct.
But the heat of the moment is war, chaos, battle, confrontation, encountering somebody coming after your job, encountering somebody coming after your life, whatever the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you freak out and panic or freeze up, or can you handle it? And either with grace, and Greene talked about an example of a guy he knew he was going to be going to his death, the tea master, because he was being challenged by a samurai. So he knew he was going to his death because he had stood no chance.
No, exactly. Mm-hmm.
But Greene gets into, he went to a fencing teacher or swordsman, and the swordsman said, just as you set up your tea, just as you do that ritual and that ceremony, you take your coat, I'm not sure what it's called, you take your garment off and everything.
Kimono, I think.
Maybe the kimono.
Mm-hmm.
And do everything and prepare to die. And when he did that, the samurai who had challenged him got scared, thinking that this guy was way too calm coming to his death. He must be actually a swordsman. And that samurai took off running, right? That was one example of being calm and cool and collected, and one way that you can use kind of, I guess, not just techniques, right, to rituals to maintain a calm state of mind.
Yeah, it's easier said than done. It's not easy.
Yeah.
You know, he says, you're right. When things are going well, you know, everybody seems to be in control. It's when things go awry, haywire, that you really see the true character and nature of the person. So he says, you know, you're not battle tested.
Yeah.
Okay? You haven't been tested in battle. And that's a very important thing. Okay? And I know that one of these generals that fought in Afghanistan or something like that, I know he was in the Middle East.
Was it Patton?
No. Patton.
Well, that's World War II.
Yeah. I'm talking about recent wars that, you know, with Saddam Hussein and stuff like that.
I see.
There were a couple that were not battle tested, and they did exceedingly well. Okay? So he gives a lot of examples. The book is absolutely brilliant. The level of research that gets done and put into it, I really admire it. So he talks about Alfred Hitchcock, how he prepared so much before any movie that he knew exactly what he wanted to accomplish, and he didn't let any actor acting up or you know, getting bent out of shape or requesting silly or dumb things. He didn't let anything
phase him. Yeah.
Because he knew exactly, he had already prepared to such a detail.
Yeah.
That nobody could take him off his track. That preparation was knowing what he wanted, how he wanted to bring it about, and also he had mastered everything in the production line. He knew what the camera angles were because he studied them. He knew how to handle the camera. He knew how the director was supposed to act because he had put himself in those shoes. So he mastered every single little thing about movie making.
Yeah.
And some of the actors said, hey, he's just like the sleeping Buddha. That's what they called him as a nickname.
Yeah.
And his movies were, except for the first one, which he didn't like at all. He thought it was a failure, according to him. All the others were tremendous successes.
But maybe it took the first one to,
That is correct.
right, that adversity and the chaos to say, hey, I never want that to happen again. And Greene gave several examples of people that they took it into their own hands to make sure it never happened again.
Right.
Whether it was generals who went on the front lines with their soldiers, or whether it was Hitchcock who knew in and out every single aspect of it. He was willing to hear the person out who maybe wanted to change, let's say, some of the direction of the film. He would hear them out, but he would still have his way.
Yeah.
He had planned it all out. He had seen it all in his head.
And it's like he says, our mind is weaker than our emotions.
Yeah.
So if we allow our emotions to get a better part of us, then we are trending down the road of potentially losing that battle. And he says we need internal discipline and toughness in order to deal with this. Easier said than done. It's something that has to be cultivated, not only in times of war, and by war I'm meaning not necessarily a physical war out in a terrain where we're shooting each other, but it could be in the workplace, dealing with a boss that, because there's another portion that he says, don't pay too much attention to fools.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I mean, I took a ton of notes.
How do you...
Recognize a fool and don't fight them. Recognize a fool and don't fight him. But what happens if that fool happens to be your boss at work and he's making your life miserable? How do you handle something like that?
Now, you're Cuban.
Yes.
And
don't hold it against me.
Being Cuban, I guess it could be a stereotype, but they come from somewhere. They're very emotional people. Cubans are very loud and emotional.
Yes.
And that could be a lot of Latin America. Maybe it's just in the culture.
I think it is.
So, like, when I'm going into this chapter, I think of the Stoics. Almost cold. They seem almost cold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can think like a Stoic would, if their parents passed away, are they cold? Are they emotional about it? Or are they able to just say, this is life? This is, because emotion is good. I don't think Greene is arguing emotion is not good, but what he's saying is that I guess know how to control it.
Okay.
But I think this is very challenging, especially for, let's say, Latin Hispanic cultures, that we're all emotion.
I agree. And I got news for you. As you get older, you get more emotional, because I see my grandkids with, let me put this properly so I don't get myself into a lot of trouble with the family. So
you don't have to be politically correct here.
No, I don't? Okay. I don't want to expose myself too much either. No. Let's be genuine. That's the key to everything. So I love my children very much. However, the love that I feel for my grandkids, it's not greater, but they have the better part of me. They will have a tendency to get away with more than you guys ever did. And I was talking to your brother the other day about that. The other day being yesterday. We got together for the Super Bowl. And we were talking about, a vacation he recently took, and he took all the kids. And it's difficult. You have 3 little people along with you Okay, it's difficult. You're running every which way.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about it, and one of the comments that I made to him was like, you give your children a lot more latitude that I ever gave you guys. You guys were on a more strict. You guys had a shorter
Regiment.
leash with us than he has. He's more loose with the children, and and there's pros and cons to everything.
Sure.
I don't know how we got on that. How do we get on that topic? Because we're emotional or something?
Yeah, you were saying that your grandkids.
Yeah. Oh,
You're
as
very
you get
emotional.
older,
Yeah.
as I've gotten older, I've gotten more emotional.
Yeah.
You know?
But in a situation of chaos, in a situation like our good friend Dan, who's a firefighter,
Mm-hmm.
and Greene talks about the more that you face that fear, that chaos, the more you're able to control yourself in those situations. So I thought of our friend because it's a good friend. He's facing fires. He was fighting these fires in Pasadena, Altadena, and to anybody you're gonna run for your life, but he's actually going and combating that fire,
Mm-hmm.
and he has to keep his mind
A level head.
in a level head and be calm somehow amongst the chaos. This is what he does for a living, right? And
Well, he's trained.
he's trained.
Training has the level of training that you do, it gets to a point where you don't even have to think about it.
Intuition.
Yes, because you have muscle memory, you've been down that road, you know what you're supposed to do, and you act upon. But Dan is a very special type of human being. I think that you can extrapolate that to a lot of people that are in the fields of firefighters. I have the utmost respect for them. Nurses, nurses. There's something else. I have the highest respect for nurses. These people that are in the fields of helping others,
Yeah.
they have this gift granted by the Lord. The energy, the God, Muhammad, whatever, whoever you believe in. These people have a special gift to they give more than they take.
Yeah.
They are genuinely the sauce that puts everything together in our entire world.
It's a good point you bring up, though. Training.
They will sacrifice their life,
Right.
even to save an animal.
Yeah.
Because I've seen firefighters going back in to pull out dogs.
Yeah.
Okay? But the training kicks in. You're at a level that you just don't think about it. It's intuition, it's muscle memory, it's what you've done, and it's also self-confidence.
Yeah.
You're confident that you can do this. You have the training, and then you run into it. And you're not just doing a business deal where you and I are buying a building. They're actually putting their lives on the line,
Right.
which is the utmost sacrifice, right?
Yeah. Yes, and but not to take away from, let's say, a business situation, because that could be so stressful to the point that you have anxiety, a panic attack. I know of, through somebody, a story of a gentleman in 2009 that lost all his properties,
Mm-hmm.
and he lost it.
What do you mean he lost it? He lost his properties,
He
and
lost
then
all of his property, and then mentally he just went berserk, and he lost it, and he I think it ended up where he tried to harm people, and himself. So it's not to take away that those situations also can be extremely stressful and cause tremendous amount of anxiety. And how do you handle it when everything you've worked to build up, you lose? How do you handle that? How do you stay calm and even keel in a situation like that?
you have to dig in. You have to do like an introspective study of yourself, or you have to dig into yourself, and it's extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. Like I went through the 2008 situation where all my friends were losing everything, and property that I have bought, you know, was falling in price, where at one point the properties that I owned, I owed more for them than what they were actually worth. Underwater. And so I'm here to tell you that I lived that, and your blood pressure goes through the roof. If somebody's telling you that it's an easy thing, it's not.
Yeah.
But you have to somehow prioritize your values and figure out what's worth more. You know, can you start all over again? Do you have a heart attack and pass out? Do you allow yourself to get a stroke? Do you let that level of tension get through the roof? It's not easy, son. Okay? It's not easy. The way I did it was I went back to my religion and I prayed a lot. And fortunately, I had my mom and dad still with me. I resorted to clinging to them, and I worked 15-hour days. I worked 14, 15, 16-hour days to bring in more revenue to compensate for the losses that I was having. And fortunately, it worked for me. And a lot of my friends lost everything. It was tough. And it's tough to see them too. You see people that even a couple of my mentors lost everything. So,
well, we're in the world of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone to several events recently where our peers in real estate, realtors, loan officers, escrows, are very much hurting. They say that, what's the statistic? 49% of
48.8%.
of realtors in 2024 sold 0 properties.
Can you imagine?
And for those who don't know, real estate is 100% commission. So if you don't sell any properties, then you don't eat. If you don't eat, then you're in a tough situation. So it's interesting because going to these events that I've been going to recently,
Mm-hmm.
in 2025 now, beginning of the year, I sense the thickness in the air. It reminds me of when you and I were marketing our insurance business at the time in 2009, 2010. I remember going to these real estate events with you, and there was a thickness in the air. There were bank-owned properties. They were everywhere. You would have these realtors that had tons of properties that they had to unload, bank-owned. I'm not saying that that's where we are today. I'm just saying there's a sense in the air that is similar. But keeping a level head and prioritizing what you said is prioritizing like what was actually important to you. Your family, your health.
You go back to
the basics.
The basics.
The basics.
Because I remember talking to my father, and I was all stressed out on one particular building that I was going to lose. And I remember my dad said, "Hey, what's the worst that can happen?" And I looked at him and I said, "What do you mean, what's the worst that can happen? I'm going to lose this property." And then he said, "So what?"
Yeah.
So what? You're still going to have a plate with food here at the end of the day. And if you need to move in, there's a guy on social media that says, this clip is only like 30 seconds and it's powerful. And he says, "This is what I'm saying, what I'm going to say to my kids when they grow up." Apparently he has little kids. Okay? And he says, if you get married and your relationship goes south, come back home. If you get married and if you start a business and it goes bad and you have to declare bankruptcy or whatever, come back home. If you do this and it doesn't work out, come back home. If you go to college and you're thinking that it's not for you and you need another direction, come back home. So this father is giving them, go out there he's not he's not saying don't try things. Go out there and try things because you need to create your own path in life. But if something goes wrong, come back home. And I came back to my mom and dad. And I was already married and I had 3 kids. And so, it was
Yeah.
it was a lot of comfort to know that if I lost everything, I could still come back home and have a plate of food.
Yeah.
That's I think a lot of Hispanic families, I think many families, we don't have to generalize for Hispanic, would do that with their
I
kids.
agree. I
Yeah.
think just that's like stability and someone you can count on.
Yeah.
Um, I really resonated with what he said about preparation. Um, I think preparation could be a great way to overcome fear. It doesn't take away the fear. You still have to jump and do it, but you're more prepared and your confidence, I think, goes up when you go into
Hands
the
down.
situation. Yeah,
Hands
preparation.
down. Yeah.
I mean, I remember for me one of my big fears was playing the recital in piano in front of an audience.
Mm-hmm.
That for me was very intimidating. I don't know why, because now looking back, so you mess up or whatever, it doesn't really matter. But it was all the eyes watching you. It wasn't a massive group, but let's say there were 50 people or whatever, right?
Right.
But
Well,
that
there's
fear.
pressure. You don't want to make a mistake. You want to do the best you possibly can.
But that fear. And so my teacher pushed me to do it, and I am grateful for that. But the preparation leading up to that was everything. Because in that moment, because of all the fear and intimidation or just nervous anxiety,
You freeze up.
you
could.
you're pure uh, muscle memory. You are pure, just I guess, intuition. At that point, there's no really, you're not thinking, you're just playing. You've practiced so much that you're just playing. And I think that goes for martial arts, and I think that goes for any situation, maybe even in business,
And training.
in training. Yeah.
And you can't. That's why I tell young people whenever I can. I try to be a source of encouragement at all times. Okay, sure. You need to be realistic too, and you got to be careful what you do. But you can't provide your preconceived idea on a young person. Let that young person develop into what they're thinking. If they want to open a business, whatever, especially in the business world, right, that we're in. But there are things that a young person can do that an older person like me that's been in business may not be able to realize it because of the energy, the willingness, the power that they may be able to put into this, etc. So every time you're giving an advice to a younger person, it should be in the form of encouragement, because you don't know what they can actually do. They might be able to set the world on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah,
don't put your own like limiting beliefs on
Correct.
that person.
I mean, you could be talking to an Elon Musk,
Yeah.
that's changing the world. I mean, he's got 4 or 5 major companies that are doing huge things for humanity.
Yeah.
And so but preparation, it's extremely important.
I really liked the quote that Greene says. It's from some book of another samurai book, where he says, one should make his decisions within the space of 7 breaths.
Can you believe that?
One should make his decisions within the space of 7 breaths. I struggle with that. Sometimes I'll get invited to something and I take a long time to reply. I don't just say, hey, you know what, I can't make it to that. If I already know I can't make it, or I'm not going to be going, or whatever the case, I struggle with that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why. I feel bad responding or whatever the case. But if I just responded, then I can move on, because mentally it's still in your head, and I have to reply. It's kind of like a computer that has a bunch of windows open. You never close out the windows,
Well, that's a problem, I think, in today's day and age, where I call another business person and they don't even return the call. I,
Well, I'm
I
talking more like making a decision on
yeah,
something.
I hear you.
Like,
You have a lot of windows open.
do you struggle at all in making decisions, or are you
No.
good at just the answer is this and then moving on?
Okay, so I used to take my time making decisions. And nowadays, I make my decisions very quickly. So it's something
What's
that
the difference?
I think that I'm older, and so I know exactly what I want and how do I want to get there.
Hmm.
And before, I mean, I'm all over the place too. I'm taking classes and I'm trying to learn things, provide new skills for myself. And so that takes me. You need a lot of energy to stay focused, okay? But in the older days, when I was younger, it took me. I analyzed things more,
Hmm.
okay? Now that I'm older, I analyze a few things. I used to, before making a decision on something, I used to draw a T-chart for everything, okay? And I would put like 15 pros on a T-chart that I would do when I was younger. I would get a page, 8 by 11, and put on the left side pros and on the right side cons. And then I come up with 25 pros and 18 cons, and I will analyze it and this and that. Today, I do that T-chart in my head, and I only come up with a few things. And if I think that it's positive, the few things, I don't keep researching the thing. I just make the decision right there and then. That's it. And it's interesting because as you get older, I've focused on something and I said, I like to have this. And by God, you end up getting it. I don't know if it's the universe, the energy you put out, you're talking to people, or inadvertently you unconscious, you talk to people, but it brings you to that, okay? Especially the spoken word.
Hmm.
And so I've seen that in my later years. So, it's your life. You write the book of your life. You own your pages. So you focus on what you want to do and you're going to get it accomplished. One thing is that he says self-reliant is critical. Self-reliant is critical. And he says you have to expand your repertoire of skills. So in my particular case, Mike,
Independence is self-reliant.
independence.
Yeah.
So in my particular case, the fact that I was so poor with computers, right? Because I was always asking people to help me with it, made me a slave. And now I'm taking these computer classes so that I can generate new skills, so that I can be self-reliant.
Yeah.
Just like the chapter says,
Mm-hmm.
And that gives you the confidence to move forward. And even somewhere he says, I have it written down, I took a ton of notes. If you make a mistake, don't worry about it. Clear your mind of all doubt, and the momentum will carry you forward. That's extremely important.
Yeah, he talked about there were 3 times if you take a step back. It
I got
reminds
it.
me in the game of chess, right?
Yeah.
When you take a step back in chess, you're showing weakness to a certain extent.
Right.
You take a second step back, and what is it?
If you take a first step back in war, you create a poor impression in your army.
Yeah.
If you take a second step back, that becomes dangerous. And if you happen to take the third step backwards, that's fatal. You're done.
Yeah.
It's over.
I've never taken a step back in chess and be proud of it, personally. But in life, sometimes you do need to regroup, right? I mean, maybe some of these grandmasters know how to use going back and forth like that. But I personally, you have to be on the attack. That's the way that I've played chess.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because he mentions in the chapter presence of mind should be a continual thing, not just during the time of war, but also during the time of peace.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, right now, having presence of mind in what we're doing. You know, we don't have to face the enemy in order to be totally involved in the present.
Right.
If we're totally involved in the present, that's going to create a brighter future for us if we're doing the best that we possibly can.
Presence of mind. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be present.
Yeah. Being in control. That's presence of mind is being in control, right?
Yeah, and it.
You know, remember the example he gives of the German, was it the German?
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Fingerspitting or whatever. Fingerspitting.
this gentleman was stuck in a situation where if he retreated, he was in trouble. If he stayed, he was in trouble. And if he moved forward, he was in trouble. And he decided, was it Patton?
I'm not sure.
General Patton? He decided, you know what, I'm going to move forward because if I'm going to die, it's going to be moving forward.
Yeah.
It was General Patton.
Yeah.
And he ended up moving forward. He got shot. He ended up surviving that battle. But ever since then, he was able to overcome that fear. And
can you imagine the guts?
Oh, yeah.
Because you're talking
he says,
about
if I'm going to die,
Yeah.
I'm going to do it moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. Because, of course, I'm destroying it, but it's Fingerspitting or something like that.
It's a German word.
It's a German word, and it's talking about fingertip feel.
Mm-hmm.
You feel the presence in
the moment.
The moment, right? It's something special, right? And one of the things that he said just prior to that battle was, today is a day where another Patton will die.
Yeah.
So he went in there to give it its all.
Yeah.
Right? Thinking, I'll die today.
Yeah.
The same thing that Horatio guy.
That's that fingertip
feel. Yeah, fingertip feel.
That is relying on intuition.
You're in the presence of the moment. You're in the moment. You're relying on intuition.
You're just acting, and it's like being on your toes in soccer. You're ready. You're not flat-footed, and you're just acting. Because in soccer, you don't have a chance to think either.
Right.
You have to just act. But you were saying?
No. You know, it's the Germans had it right. You have to be on your toes constantly.
Yeah.
I was going to say something else, but it's you know, he says, you know, a focused mind. Let's say you're focused on your present moment, right? A focused mind has no room for anxiety. That's brilliant. Just think about it. You're focused in what you're doing. You're not going to let any fears come in or whatever. You're planning. You're preparing. You need discipline for that, and you're supplying it. And how is anxiety going to get into that? It's impossible.
Anxiety seems to creep in when you give time to think and analyze, and then you overthink and overanalyze and create all these situations of possible bad scenarios.
Yeah.
But when you're focused and you're just moving forward and pushing through, it reminds me of one of the 48 laws is to enter action with boldness. Like if you're going to go in, you go in all the way.
Well, you have to.
Yeah.
In fact,
and if you make a mistake, you push forward.
You push forward.
You push forward.
In fact, you know, most of the time, let's talk business for a second.
Okay.
I was buying an agency, and I was extremely, I don't know if the word was fearful, but fear was part of it. Skeptical, not sure.
Analytical, doubting.
Yeah, skeptical, not sure, you know, and
doubtful.
Yeah. I had just gone over the 48 laws of power, and in one of them it said, once you engage, once you get involved in it, just go through it like a train, just no stopping, right? And I remember thinking, I need to do that with this purchase. What really gave me the ignition, the power boost to go through it, was that for a second I thought, if I say no to the purchase of this agency, what's going to be the outcome? And the outcome would be somebody else is going to buy it, because everything sells. Everything has a price. And whoever buys it will own something in my area, okay, that's going to
Become your
make
competitor.
become my competitor. So if I don't buy this, I'm opening the doors for my competitors to buy it. And I had first shot at it. And so I bought it. That's what gave me because I said, what would happen if I don't do it?
Mhm.
Well, then my competitor is going to do it. And by getting it, my competitor will become strong. And it's going to give me a run for my money. If I buy it, then I become stronger. And I'll deal with the problems that come with it.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of issues.
And it worked out for you.
In the long run, it did. In the short run, it was in the trenches, fighting hard, making changes. You're buying the book, you're buying clientele, right? So you're doing things a little bit differently. You can't change too fast, but you must implement some changes. So it's a delicate art kind of thing. But you buy it. You buy it and then you deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I think that's the way it is. Surgeons have to be very quick on the draw. Everything is going well, the blood pressure is going good, the anesthesiologist is telling you everything's fine, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's a bleeder. Well, you better attack that immediately. Everything else has to wait now. If you were cutting into a tumor or whatever, now you got a bleeder, you better stop that bleeding because your blood pressure is going to drop, and now your patient, it's...
And that doctor has to be also maintain a state of mind, present
Be
mind.
cool about it.
Yeah, imagine the doctor starts flipping out.
No, you can't.
You can't.
You're
leading everybody.
That's right. You're leading everybody.
There was a quote in the book that talked about that. If you don't have, he was calling it, this is a Japanese way of philosophy. If you don't have your center, a man without center cannot lead.
There you go.
You're not fit for leadership. A warrior, there's another quote, a warrior is a person who does things quickly.
Yeah.
That's what a warrior is. So if we're warriors in life, you make decisions quickly, you are able to analyze things quickly, react quickly. You don't need all this time to think. And it was interesting because he said the person that really thinks things out and analyzing it, they're actually fearful. They had just fear of the conflict. It's this analyzing, all the analyzing that they're doing is just hiding. It's just to cover the fact that they're fearful of making a decision.
Yeah, and fear comes in many forms. Your fear for your life, your fear for your career. You make a decision. If I turn right and that's not the right move, my career is going to end. Or somebody's got, gone for my position. There's a lot of things that could, and you just need to go for it, He says, once you engage, so act quickly, right? But once you engage, find joy in the attack mode. Once you engage,
have fun.
Sum up all your energy and find joy in the attack mode. He says, do the preparation and the analyzing and all that stuff when you're getting ready for war. When you're going to get ready for war, you can take your time, potentially, unless the enemy attacks you first, right? But when you're getting ready, analyze it and this and that and whatever. But when you finally engage, then you got to go all out and put all fears aside and a focused mind. Nothing else can bother it, It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
I remember one time I was going to be going into this meeting. This was in a corporate setting, right? And this manager wanted to meet with me. I was a new guy in the area and whatnot. And he was kind of very forceful. And I don't know if I felt threatened by this person. So I remember even talking to you about it. And I prepared so much for this first meeting with him. I prepared so much, and it was me, the manager, and then the partner that I was working with in the insurance business. And I was so prepared to kind of give it to this manager and let him know, hey, I'm doing this, this, and this, what I bring to the table and all that. And I thought it was going to be a very confrontational meeting, and it ended up not going like that at all. And I credited at that time all the preparation that I had done before the meeting. So it felt like I was going into the lion's den before the meeting. But once I got there, it was like a cub because that I was going up against, because I felt so prepared. And I think maybe he felt that, and that's why the meeting tone changed, because over the phone it was very different. And
No
so,
doubt about it. No doubt about it.
yeah.
Because from a management point of view, okay, if I'm dealing with, you say you were younger, right? You were
Newer, younger.
newer in the company, right?
Yeah.
Then I'm feeling I need to show this new person in the company, a path that he can follow to success.
Yeah.
But if, on the other hand, I sit with the new person in the company and I see the self-confidence and I see that this person has got this thing laid out, that he has prepared, that he knows what he wants, that he knows where he's going, he's got his goals all set up and stuff like that, then as a manager, the best thing to do is get out of the guy's way or the lady's way and let them succeed. Why are you going to impose certain things? But see, that comes because you were prepared for the meeting,
Yeah.
and you knew what you wanted and you expressed it, and he backed off. So maybe he was a good manager after all,
Yeah, he backed off.
and so he let you run.
Yeah.
Let's see what you can do.
Right.
It's kind of like what I was telling you before. You want to encourage people that are thinking of taking on new things, right? Whether it's a musician, whatever, doctor, engineer, whatever. Encourage them, because you never know what they can end up doing. The sky's the limit, if you really want it. So he got out of your way and he let you, there's nothing to tweak here. The kid knows what he wants. So I'm definitely preparation took that meeting in a different, If you show up and you're fearful and you don't know what you want and this and that, well, there's going to be a lot more involvement.
Yeah. Yeah, because like Greene talked about in this chapter, someone like a Stalin, a dictator like Stalin, smelled fear. He sensed fear. And so when he sensed fear in the room, it was destruction. It was not good for the people in the room.
No.
And Greene gives the example of Shostakovich, the composer, who stood up to Stalin in a tactful way, changed the subject, moved on.
Very tactfully.
Asked for his opinion on something because he knew Stalin liked to share his opinion. He thought that he was
a genius in every field.
a genius in every field. And it was the example of address the person, not the myth behind them. And Greene was saying the person, Stalin, was an overweight, insecure,
short
person.
and ugly.
But the myth behind Stalin was
huge,
a very dangerous man and intimidating, and he was, right? But Shostakovich, the way that he overcame that and didn't show fear was by addressing just the person, right?
Not the myth.
Yeah, that person with all their insecurities. You've said it a bunch of times, because I remember being very intimidated of certain people, and you would say, they're just like us. They wake up in the morning and they put their pants on the same way that we do.
Yeah,
They go to the bathroom
the
the
same
same
way
way
we
that
do.
we do. You used other words, but
Yeah,
we'll
they
keep
eat-
it. We'll
they
keep it clean.
keep it clean, you know.
Yeah. But the same way that we do. Yeah, they eat the same way that, so that humanizes them, because sometimes we think somebody, because they've accomplished all these things, they got the same amount of hours in a day as you do.
That's right.
So those were certain things that were impactful for me, because I was intimidated by, let's say, someone else's success, the myth behind them.
The myth behind them. Yeah. There's a lot to be said about people that are experts in their field. For example, a pilot that's piloting a 747, a surgeon that's doing a heart transplant, an engineer that knows that his foundation has to be on point,
Yeah.
and they are experts in their field. A tremendous amount of respect needs to be,
Absolutely.
given to these people in their fields.
Yeah.
However, they're not an expert in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of the day, they're just as human as you and I.
Right.
They walk the same way. They eat the same things, pretty much, right? And,
Yeah.
if they have hair, they comb their hair the same way. And if they don't, well, they don't have use for a comb, but they're all human
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yes.
And I think that when we break that down, it will provide respect for every single human being.
You can learn from everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Anything else you want to
No,
throw in?
no. Read the chapter, folks. It's tremendous,
Yeah. Yeah. Another solid strategy by Robert Greene.
Yeah.
We'll wrap it up.
All right.
Thank you.